You brat.
I wanted to capture that joy.
Jennifer Zenz Olsen is a brat. How dare you bring out my imperfections?
It was great. That facial.
It was an imperfect face, but it was perfectly
It was
done.
perfectly imperfect.
That being said, hello and welcome back to Midlife Humor Gurus. Did I just say Humor Gurus? I did. Midlife Humor Gurus. I'm Sue.
I'm Jen.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Sue. We're a little slap happy.
Punchy.
We don't know this about us, but we batch record these sometimes. So it's from one to the next to the next. So by the end, if we start to get quirkier and quirkier as we go, just know we may have been at it for a minute. No, we're so glad you're here. And we're kind of leaning into some things that we felt like might be helpful for the holiday. And so we know that you can't wait to talk about grief.
Grief. Oh my God. I've been waiting for this all year.
Everybody just went
about grief.
I know. Let's make our best. Can we make our the shittiest? Like, I don't want to talk about that face.
Do you want the face that I was making?
I do.
Could you were laughing?
Yes.
Okay, hang on.
Yes. Yep.
That one?
Yeah. Okay.
That
it was a good. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We sort of look like Seuss, like the Whoville people when we did that.
Oh yeah. I was thinking Bette Midler and Hocus Pocus. But
no, I was. Yeah. I mean, either way. I mean, it was not cute. So just for those of you listening to the podcast, you're welcome that you didn't have to observe that. So. What I do think is I felt like it was remiss to sort of like skip over grief, because grief can take a lot of forms at the holiday. And we at least want to honor and respect that for people, because I feel like it's just, like I said, sort of ignoring the forest for the trees, sort of. For some people, we know and respect that this is going to be the first holiday that you might not have a loved one with you. It could be a holiday that you are formally divorced.
Empty nest.
And empty nesting. Yeah. I don't know anything about that.
Right.
I know my child came home today. I was like, yeah, like, I mean, the enthusiasm. I mean, it's no small deal when I'm like, is she in here? So I look like a bad Hallmark movie, but yeah, I mean, you know, whether it's like you said, or like I've got a parent who is slowly dying. And so, right. So I think that the holidays can be so full of joy, and also it can be a direct reflection of the pieces that don't feel like they're going how we would like them to be right now. And so I think that's why we spend and I think it's too bad. We're gonna do one of these on expectations. And so that will be somewhere in the mix of all of the things. But I do think that it comes to that, is that if we show up to the holiday as well with this like expectation that it's going to be grand and it's amazing, and we look around us and other people look like they're having so much joy and having this beautiful wonder around the holiday, and like, I feel like shit on the inside. I don't feel like celebrating. You know, I think we want to just really allow ourselves the space to honor that grief shows up in all its forms. And I think sometimes even as much as a holiday doesn't go the way you wanted it to be, can be a grief. So it's right. So grief is really big. It's a vast kind of umbrella. And I just want, you know, maybe it's a year you can't spend as much as you always did. And that's grief. So rather than counting the ways you can experience your grief, but I do want to honor that, because I think that it's really important to just speak to that. And I think, Sue, you and I have both lost parents. So I'm wondering if you would be willing to share with our listeners about, you know, maybe where have you experienced grief around the holidays, and what have you done or found that is useful to you? Because everyone does grief differently. So I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to talk about the 5 stages of grief. I talked about it all the time in my office till I had my own loss. And I was like, that shit is not covering all the effing bases. Can I be just real honest with y'all? So I'm not going to do that. Sorry if you're hoping.
I'm sorry, but I just find that funny, because I'm picturing it, because you were so clinical, and then you experience it, and then you have this, well, screw that moment.
Yeah, you were like, for some reason, I don't know, that shit's not covering all the bases. And I'll get to that. I'll get to that when I speak about my journey as well. But I would, if you would be willing, if you're not willing to open, I can certainly start us. I didn't mean to like throw you under the bus on here. You get to have the grief story first. But I think that whoever starts, I think it's nice for people to hear where we've been and what we have done with that. So if you're willing, if you're not, I can take a run at it and like let you take second turn.
No. Well, first, okay, mine's twofold. First, I'm going to go to what you were just saying, where you were talking about the 5 stages of grief until you went through loss. And then you're like, no, screw that. So I know we have mentioned this before, and it will be mentioned again until forever and ever and ever until the end of time, that I'm an animal person and I'm a pet person. And that's my soul and my heart goes, not that I don't like people. I joke that I don't like people. That's not the case. It's not at all. It's just that has always been my love language.
Yes.
And just real quick, and I'm not going to bring I hope I'm not going to bring anybody down. When I lost my dog of 16 years, 2.5 years ago, I got the stuff. I got the things from people, and I got the beautiful messages, and I cannot tell you what that stuff means to me. I actually heard from more people than when I did when my father passed away.
Yes, yeah.
Because my friends just knew how important that was, right?
Yes.
So you know the poem, the Rainbow Bridge.
Yes.
Okay. If you don't know the Rainbow Bridge, just go ahead and Google it and read it. And if you are an emotional person who loves your animals, you're going to read it. You're going to need a box of tissues, whatever.
Yeah,
okay.
Like,
yeah. So my first outing that I did that year, it would have been sometime in August, because she passed away in July. It might have even been September. I got together with my friend, and I remember being like so uptight about people sending me different versions of the Rainbow Bridge. I don't send out the Rainbow Bridge to people anymore when they've lost their pet. I remember standing in the parking lot after I finally got out of bed one day. I put on some makeup and some like pants, and I met my friend for breakfast, and we were talking a little bit about it. And I remember walking to my car, and I said, I remember saying to her very specifically, the Rainbow Bridge, what the crap, man? Dogs are colorblind. Screw the Rainbow Bridge.
Have a little meltdown.
That might have been my anger phase of the grief process. I'm just saying.
That's part of the journey.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Or not. Yes.
Okay. So, my first Christmas, and I know that there is different. I'm going with Christmas because that is where my spirituality journey had me going as a child. So I'm saying Christmas. I'm not trying to blot out or blur out any other holiday celebration, because I know that there are dozens of them this time of year.
Yes.
And I respect that. And but I just remember my first Christmas, I decided, because I had been, after my father passed away in 2014. That was the year from hell for me, because it was grandmother, 2 weeks later, father. Then I had a dog pass away the day before my dad's funeral. And then I had a pet lizard that I'd had for like 12 years pass away. So it was not a good year for me. It was really not a good year for them. I mean, let's face it. But it was just really heavy. I had a hard time getting up.
Yes.
Because every time I did, I got hit with something else.
Right.
And that's life. It is what it is. I can say that now because I'm 8 years removed from it, but it was not an easy year for me.
Yeah.
So the first Christmas that I got to, I had I have a fiber optics tree that my parents actually got for me many, many years ago. I was in the hospital. And I'll tell that story at another time, but I was in the hospital, and my parents brought me home, and they had gone shopping. They had found this little, it was like an 18-inch fiber optic tree, and it was all lit up, and the needles and everything light up, and there's a little disc and the colors go around, and tacky as hell. But I love that tree. I love that tree so much, because when I pulled into the driveway, well, my dad pulled in the drive, my dad was driving, and it was in the window. They had set it up for me at my house. And so that was what I got to see when I came home from the hospital. And that was a very deep, heavy point of grief in my life as well. And so I love that tree. So the year my dad passed away, and everyone else in my life, seemingly, that I cared about, I decided to pull out that tree and decorate it. And then, of course, I found I found the stocking of my dog. I had stockings for my pets, and I found my lizards, and I found my dogs, and I was just like, this is such a stupid idea. But I kept going. I will say that the first night I had everything set up and I fired up a Christmas movie, and I had like, I don't think I did hot chocolate. I don't think I was quite that trite. But I was sitting watching whatever I was watching, and I had all the lights off except for my tacky fiber optics tree. And it's funny because it's got the circle disc that goes around. So it's on a motor.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I could hear was bzzz.
Yeah. I'm actually with you. I can 100% hear this right now in my head. Yep.
And I was like, I will be completely honest with you. I'm like, okay, that's enough. I'm done with Christmas now. And that was it.
That was all you had.
Like, that was it. I was done.
Oh, no, yeah.
And the process of it actually did serve me very well, though, because going through the process of the decorating, when I say decorating, I mean, I had one table with my tree, and that was it. Like, I don't even know if I have decorations now, but I didn't have my childhood decorations at the time. My mom brought those to me a couple years later. And that was pretty much it. And I will say that the process of it was therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
It was a
like
good
the ritual. Do you mean kind of
Yes.
like I'm not trying to cut you
Yes.
off, but like you mean like the ritual of like just
Yes.
doing the thing that's
Correct.
normal in quotes. Everyone here can't see my air quotes. So okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Go ahead.
And that's exactly it. Going through there, because that was the big thing that I remember doing. I know that I did it. See, my brothers are 6 and 10 years older than me.
Right.
And so it was the three of us. And I know as a family, we did all of that, like when I was really, really little, but my memories of it are just very vague and very blurry. Mm-hmm. But then it was when it was me and my parents, after both of my brothers had moved on and got married, joined the Navy and all that fun stuff. It was the three of us. And I know that we still did that, the three of us together as a family.
Okay.
And so it was very therapeutic for me to be able to do that, but it was different. I will say it was different. It's been different since then. And I really didn't even see my parents that much. My parents lived out of state. My mom still does. And she lives in the house where they retired to 21 years ago. And I didn't see my parents every Christmas. So that was part of the grieving process too, was, I wish I had spent more Christmases with them.
Sure.
And, you kind of go through the stuff.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I went through like the guilt. I went through like all of it. Mm-hmm. And that was enough.
Yeah, that'll do ya. That'll do ya.
And I'm like, you know what? Bring on the New Year's, because
this shit sucks. This shit blows.
It sucks, man. This really, really sucks. I don't want to do it anymore. But since then, with each year, and I will say, because you do, for me, it's remembering. And I remember I remember a friend of mine telling me, because she lost her dad when she was really, really young, and she's lost both of her parents. She lost her mom when she was really young. She lost her dad not long after that. And I remember her telling me, I kind of wish she hadn't said this, but it's true. When he passed away, she said, that was your Santa Claus. He was your Santa Claus. And so now every Christmas, that's what I think of. Right? I know, right?
It's not fun. Yeah, I know you all, if you're listening, can't see my face. I was like,
but the look on your face was pretty much the look on my face when she said it to me. And I was just like, well, thanks for that imagery, bitch.
I can't unknow that shit. Okay, yeah.
Can't unknow that. Because but again, it's been, so many years separated from it.
Right.
And I can now look back, because I made a vow, and I've talked to my boyfriend about, he's lost a parent as well. And I've talked to him about this when it comes to my dad. I have tried over the last 8 years to continue the legacy of his living and not the last few moments of him dying. That's really hard to do, because that's the last.
Yes.
That's the last thing.
Yes.
So I tried to go through those moments where I remember I got a note from Santa, which I thought was really cool, but I thought it was really weird that it was my dad's handwriting. I remember
we need to put a caveat on these, like, don't listen with children. Like,
we should actually put a warning in the beginning.
Not with that we're not explicit and we say that, but also, no, go ahead. Sorry. I was just cracking up.
Like, I just thought it was interesting that my, his handwriting was very similar to my dad's. And he liked all the same sweets as Santa. I thought I know it was really convenient. I mean, we have the treats in the house anyway, so this is quite perfect. But when she said that to me, it really struck a chord. And I have tried now over the years with him being gone to maintain that zeal and joy, because I'm telling you something, my dad was the biggest kid.
Oh,
I don't mean that in an immature way. I mean, the man
I
had
totally
a smile, like a grin and a joy that could light up an entire building when he walked into it.
Yes. Yeah. I love it.
And so that's one of the main reasons too why I love Christmas. My mom does too. I mean, my mom really has this incredible passion for that. That's why when I was a kid, the Christmas was always the best, because they were both like, my dad was a big kid all year long, and then my mom just had such a tight spiritual connection to it that that was contagious. And so my dad, being as silly and as almost sprite-like as he was, it has helped to keep the whole spirit of everything in existence, which is what you want. That's what my therapist actually said. The 6th stage of grieving is creating a legacy for them.
I love that. Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool.
And to me, I love that. And I also think of creating a different relationship with them.
Yeah.
Which is a very powerful, I will decide if I think that fits in for today or not. But I think at some point circling back to that idea, just in terms of grief, is really huge, because again, we get to change the narrative with things. And to me, I think being empowered to shift and create legacy for your loved one, or create a different relationship with them, is the area of empowerment within grief, which you would think there isn't any, but there is. But well said. I think that's a really beautiful reminder to everybody. What a cool story. That sounded really stupid.
Thanks.
What a great story, Sue. But what I mean is, I think it's cool to know your parents through that lens, because I did not spend much time, if any, around your parents. So for me, it's like, I'm enjoying listening to you tell this story right now, because I didn't know them that way. So to me, this is the power of story is, I've known you for how long, and that was something that I would have never known had we not been having this conversation today. Right. And to me, the reason that's powerful is because that is a testament to legacy. That's how we continue to keep our loved ones with us, is by telling their stories. So that was really beautiful. It was just kind of, like I said, really neat to be able to step into a little bit of your childhood, and that way that your parents brought so much joy to the holidays. It was really cool. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for hearing your story.
Well, thank you for listening as I droned on and on and on.
You did not drone on and on. That was lovely. That was, you were in it, which I
also light and airy.
Well, grief is not really one of those spaces. We'll do our best, everyone. As I'm sitting here and it's interesting, I'm thinking about the various ways that grief shows up for all of us. And, so my mom's been gone for 7 years. And I think that it's interesting to consider. It was definitely hard the first year she was gone. And I was thinking how we did this, like my siblings and I, there was an emphasis on, like, my sister gave this really beautiful angel wing with my mom's writing on it.
Oh, neat.
That said, "Love, Mom." So she got it off like a card or something. Oh, I was like, I wore it. It was like tarnished. Like, that's how much I wore it. And then we have gotten ornaments over time and done things that are really remembering our mom, and our mom too, fanatic about the holidays. So it's interesting as I think about the loss, and I could certainly talk about, yes, that first year and the years after. One thing I think I want to emphasize rather than that is I want to emphasize the year we knew she was sick. Because I think that's something that somebody else might relate to. And I also think that it's important to think about, let me start at the front. So let's start at the moment so my mom was at my home when we found out that she had cancer. And that was in early August. And we knew she had 9 months to live. between 9 months and a year. They were like, this is depending on what you can tolerate, you know that. So we all went into, as many of us do, right? Like super driven, focused. We are going to absorb every single minute, as it should be.
Right.
So we really were mindful that we want to show up, really celebrate, make sure she has these experiences. And I think one of the really beautiful things for my mom was my mom loved the most above all things, legitimately, like maybe Jesus and then her family, but I'm not sure they might have been neck and neck, which I probably just offended everyone out there. But literally my mom had a really beautiful faith and also deeply loved her family. Like that was priority number one. And so for her, you look over at the holiday and my mom, and we're loud. I mean, Sue knows like a little bit, like if you come to a holiday, best wishes, namaste. And I hope you're willing to totally interrupt anyone having a conversation. And I hope you brought earplugs, because if you think I'm a piece of work, let me tell you something, get all this together and holy shit. I mean, the decibels in that place will like knock your socks off.
Imagine a room full of her.
And cocktails make us louder and playing family games makes us louder yet. So it is a joyous thing. Okay. So I'm just giving you the the effects. But you would look over, and even if my mom wasn't actively engaging in what we were doing, there was complete rapture on her face. And it was about her witnessing our connection. And so I think that was something that I will never forget, was just her experiencing and loving and appreciating all of that connection. And so that was something that was really important. And I think that was very hard. I think it's hard to balance the grief of knowing your person's going and wanting to be perfectly present and loving and excited. And so there's this weird twisted up notion, right? And I'm imagining that someone listening understands this, like twisted up notion of grief, that they're still here, but you know it's coming. There's no, like, do not pass go. We know. And so I do think that sometimes we can also be in states of grief like that, where it feels like it's intertwined with this gratitude for this very moment and this beauty and appreciation. And also it's gut-wrenching shit, right? Yeah. It's just all of the things together. It's so humanity in a way, right? And so I think it's really interesting to remember that piece, rather than even like where you were able to lean into that. I'm going to let you tell that part of the story. I'll tell the beginner part of the story in my journey with losing my mom. And I think what we really do is tell stories and honor the things that she loved. So my very favorite scent of candle during the year is Twisted Peppermint from Bath and Body. So I have those on hand burning all the time in my house. That was my mother's favorite. So we make her favorite recipes. We have her cookbook we get out every year. There's like my lights everywhere. I have tons of decorations. This is very much in the honor of who my mom was and how she showed up. And she absolutely loved the holidays. She loved spoiling people. Her greatest joy was spoiling all the people around her. And so there's so much about the spirit of Christmas to me that is connected to her. And I think one of the things that I think about is it is a way to honor her, to step up in and find that joy that my mom would have wanted for all of us, to absolutely harness the energy of a season and to celebrate each other and our family and our own children and what it means to be in the spirit of the season. So I feel for me, those are some of the things that we've kind of adopted that we really feel like bring her, along with us. Like she's still kind of here. And so I think that that's one piece. And I too, think about the pieces of the holidays that we get to define for ourselves around how we respect and honor the stories of our lives that don't go the way that we want. And I'm recalling a year where my mom had been in legal trouble. And she, so this is a different year and she was still alive. And this was prior to, of course, the story I told you, but, and we had nothing. We had nothing. And we had gone from very, very having lots of money to absolutely nothing. And so the family pitched in the family was very sweet and sent gifts.
Mm.
And which was very, very sweet, because what they were doing was they were like, we'll tuck in. And I will tell you, when I was a teenager, I forget, I was probably 17, maybe 18. I don't remember. And all I remember was it was a horrible grief. And deep gratitude, because like our family did not have to do that.
Right.
And none of it was normal.
Right.
And not one lick of it was normal. And so sitting there and trying to find this deep well of gratitude, because people went out of their way, and that was so thoughtful and so kind. And also, our mom was super removed. She was not in a great space mentally. It was like she was kind of checked out, and none of the gifts reflect anything that she would have done. Understandably, they don't.
Right.
People
Right.
didn't know.
Right.
And that was really horrendous. And so it's interesting to me, and I don't have most of my holidays, honestly, and it's interesting that I'm picking these out, because most of my holidays were like the Hallmark Channel. Up until that point, honestly, we were really blessed. It was like full of joy and big trees and tons of gifts and like the whole night. I mean, the whole ball of wax. And this was just 1 year where it was really, really tough after we'd experienced a trauma in our family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the reason I'm bringing these things up is that I want to talk about the nuance of grief, because I think it's easy to be like, grief means death or loss. No, it does not just look like that.
Right.
Right? It looks like a lot of things. And so I think making space to really honor that for yourself, if you are bumping into something like, oh my gosh, like, this is a tough year and it's X, Y, and Z, but it's not a death. Right. So honoring the form of grief of whatever that is, if that's showing up for you this year. So we just wanted to say that. And I think what I want, we joked earlier about the 5 stages of grief. And I will tell you that
because it's so funny.
Because there's nothing funnier than the 5 stages of grief. But what I will say is this: I definitely think it was I
have the pop-up book. I don't know about you.
The one that has the little side movement thing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The one that makes a movement, but you have the little tabs you got to pull. Yep. The scratch and sniff one. Did you ever have the scratch and sniff one from Christmas? Right. Yeah. So that sounds like a good grief book. But what I will say is, I think that it can feel really trite to identify 5 layers of what you're going to go through. And I'm going to tell you that actually no one ever does grief the same way twice. Ever, never, never. Grief is as unique as the snowflake. Grief is as unique as you are. That it is going to show up absolutely differently for every one of us. And I don't remember one moment. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I do not remember one moment of being pissed when my mom died. I was not angry. Sad? Absolutely. There was I didn't bargain with God. I was like, God, will you bring her back?
Right.
She was ready to go. No, I didn't argue with God or bargain or be pissed. It was no. So I think it's very interesting when we talk about things like that. I do know it's important for people to have something to hang their hats on so they don't feel crazy, because grief can make us feel really out of whack. But I also think make space for it to show up as it does, and to understand that, and that there's so much nuance in it. And one of the things sometimes for many people, honestly, is relief, which no one talks about. Mm-hmm. No one says the 7th step or the 7th stage of grief is relief. Because if you had a loved one that was very, very sick and in pain, for some people, that it is a really, and not it all on its own, no, but it is a relief.
Well, and I think because that shows up, and that might be something else that we can talk about at a later time too. Make a whole show out of it. Wouldn't that be fun?
I know. Sign up, everyone. Are you so excited?
But I know. I look for it in September. No, but in all seriousness, I think because that one shows up as it looks like a lack of gratitude. It looks like you didn't want them to stick around.
And that's absolutely true.
That is so hard.
Yeah.
Because one of the last things my dad said on the day he died, which I try to carry with me as much as I can, I have to play the hand I was dealt.
Yeah.
He actually used the words, I have to play the hand I was dealt. So on the one hand, he's in the hospital sick. because of this reason. And once he fights that, he still has cancer to fight. Those are his realities.
Right. Yeah.
There is no, I mean, I'm sure he had his own inner phases that he was going through, which none of us will ever know about, which is fine. It's his business, not mine.
Yep.
But when you have a situation where this is your reality, this is what's happening, this is what is happening to your loved one's body, this is what they're going through.
Yeah.
It is okay to be relieved for them.
That it's over, that the pain, I think that's exactly it. And I know that many of the listeners that will sit with us in this know exactly what we're talking about, but I think until you've ever lived through it, that's a really tough thing to get your head around.
It is a hard thing to wrap your head around, because
and then no one talks about it, right? Because
from the outside,
right.
From the outside, it looks like, wow, what are you, sadistic?
Right, what a dick, right?
What a jerk. Yeah,
that's not the only feeling I have is relief. So I think I want to say that as well, and I think the other piece that I want to drop in as a nugget that I think is really deeply important is that you get to create a relationship with these situations that's different than the one that culture tells us. And so, you know, for me, it's very interesting. And this is just a reflection upon losing my mom was, you know, I and so much of this we could grapple and talk about for 8 hours. Like I totally get it. But what I would say is I think the piece is what happens when they're not physically here.
right.
And this sense of, you know, their quotes gone, right? And for me, it's been very interesting because I once went to see a psychic, and this was after my mom was gone. And she said, it's very interesting your mom is here, which of course totally undid me, understandably. And she's like, this is really interesting. She said she kind of had a hard time in her life. And I said, yeah, she did. And she said, sometimes that kept her from parenting you how she wanted. And I said, She said, she's around you all the time now, and she is parenting you harder on the other side than she said she ever could when she was there. And I've never forgotten it. And it's been so powerful to me that I actually still talk to my mom all the time. I walked in my house that I'm living in today, was in here 5 minutes looking at it, and I heard her voice say, this is the one, Jay. So I actually feel like one of the things that I would really open up for people who've lost someone, is that you get to reinvent and redefine a relationship with someone even when they're not physically here.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful.
I feel like I want to if I can lob that to you, if this is your first year without something, that was one of the most powerful takeaways from my journey was I talk to her all the time. And that's really important for a part of my grief and my journey is my mom feels very present around me all the time. So
same.
So right. And so I think
my dad, not your mom. I wanted to show that. Just throw that out there.
Peggy's got her Salem, her Salem ultra light, and she's keeping an eye on you while she's got her coffee mug in her Salem.
I'd be okay with that if she wants to.
And she would adore you, and she would think you were the bomb.com. So our parents might in fact be friends, having worked to make this thing come to fruition.
Maybe. My dad was quite the ladies' man. I'm just saying.
And mom never met a stranger that she couldn't sit with and talk to for 8 hours a day. So, but I want to say those things, and I know not everyone listening is going to have, some of the loss, like what Sue and I are mentioning, but I want to say that we see you, hear you, and feel you. And I think one of the greatest things I would say to you as a takeaway is that I think what's so paramount, and maybe I should have said this really early, so people don't have to sit and listen to my sad story.
Well, if you've made it this far, Jen's about to drop a nugget.
Too late. Is allowing yourself permission to be where you are.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Because I think that when we get in our heads and it's like, I have to be in this place, in this experience, it's like you get to have the experience that you need. And in midlife, I think I've gotten better at making space. So how you do that as you age shifts and changes. But I really think it's so important to just make wide open space to show up where you are, how you are. Don't worry about what anybody else says. You get to decide what you need. If the holiday party this year is fucking off the charts, take it off the charts. If it's that you can't host this year, don't host this year. If it's that you need to go and take a trek to another country to go hiking in the mountains, because that's what's going to help you feel connected, then that's what you do. Do not be afraid to be deeply creative, inventive, and open-minded to leaning into what you need. And it's so important to just communicate that to your people. If you are surrounded by family, friends, and they're like, you know, right? Because people do this. What do you mean you're not gonna? And everybody gets in this whole thing, right? Because they're like, what do you mean you're not gonna be a critic? Like, yeah, I'm not gonna be there. This is where I'm at. This is what I need. And that's what they just need to hear from you. And so for me, communication so pivotal as well is please, please, please know to lean in and let your people know what you need, because people will not know how to support if we don't help them understand that. And I think, you know, we tend to panic. You know, grief scares the shit out of everybody, which is a bummer, because then we really kind of suck at it. And the reality is that lots of times it's just about leaning in and allowing someone to be where they are and honoring and respecting that. But it scares us, so sometimes we don't know how to talk about it. And so I think that's where if we're willing to stand in our own power, in our own awareness, and have so much compassion for ourselves and say to someone, yeah, I can't do the company party this year. I'm not doing a big bunch of gifts this year. You get to do what you effing need. Divorce, foreclosure, whatever it is, wherever you are, give yourself permission to be in the space.
Yep.
And will it suck? Yes. Would I like to give you like, cheerleading and rah you on some way? Yes, I would love to do that. That would be bullshit. So I don't play that way. I want to be very spade a spade. And
it blows.
It does. It blows. So we want to be honest. And I never want to like come in a space where I'm like, oh, everything will be fine. But can you have a different relationship with it? Can you create that? Can you define it? And by God, if nothing else, give yourself freaking permission to do those things that you need. Listening into what you need is so, so, so important. So that was one of my big takeaways when we started thinking about doing this. I'm like, that's a big takeaway. Do you have any other suggestions, final thoughts? I just want to make sure that we kind of like, if there's anything else we give to people, because like, I would like to give something novel, not just like the whole stages of, yeah.
Right. No, I have two things. One, you were talking about how at your mother's last Christmas, she was there and it was kind of a mind screw because you knew, right?
Yep.
But I think that is a phenomenal reminder. And this is going to sound so cliche, but I do think that there is something to be said about, even if every day living in that moment, as hard as it can be sometimes, or I should say as easy as it can be sometimes, to get mired down in the moment. And sometimes you get in your head and you're thinking ahead, or I've had these conversations before over aging animals, aging pets. Well, I know that one day when I lose them, don't think about that, because your loved one isn't thinking about that, whether it be your pet or your whoever it is, that this may be their last Christmas, or whatever. Don't think about that, because that means that you're giving to the future what you should be giving to them right now.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think it's so crucial to sort of it's like walking a tightrope to me, because when you're in it, it is hard not to future trip. Your normal mode as a human being is going to be, this could be the last. And what I would say to you is, if that's where you start future tripping and you got to have a minute, give yourself a minute. Right? You guys have heard me say, if you follow me long enough, look, all emotional states are states. Like in the United States, I can travel or go visit. I don't have to grow roots there.
Right.
Allow yourself, if it's a tear, if it's right. I am very authentic about that kind of thing. And when I'm in a state of like with family or whatever, if you have to give yourself a minute to be like, this might be the last time, I'm going to have a minute, and I'm going to say, okay, that I'm going to honor that. I'm going to honor that this minute that feels hard. And I'm going to honor that right now in this moment, the very best thing I could do for myself and my loved one is absolutely, with perfect clarity, love them and be present.
Yep.
Right. And that's very tough. And if you can't do that, don't beat the shit out of yourself, because you're just human.
Right. It's human. Right? It's human.
But I do respect very much what you're saying, which is, as much as we can, lean into that present moment, because that is all we have ever.
Well,
right?
yeah.
Trippy mind F for you, but like really, that's kind of all we ever have. So
Right.
like it's a good practice in general.
Yes, it is. It
In
is.
general. So that was one thing. Sorry, I did not mean to cut you off. You had two things. What
No,
was your
you're fine. The second one is if I can make a recommendation for a movie, because I'm all about the visual.
Okay, please do.
I can't think of who the main actor's name.
Okay.
It is The Man Who Invented Christmas is the name of the movie.
Okay.
I cannot think of the actor's name. He was
We
in
should put something in the notes for this episode.
Oh, that's the plan.
If we
Yes.
can. So that's amazing. Okay.
If you've seen Downton Abbey, he was one of the main characters in there.
Okay.
And you'd know him if you saw him. I think he played the Beast in the human version of Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
That came out Disney a few years ago.
My brain right now.
Yeah, no, same. And I would, in a perfect world, I would know this because I would have looked it up beforehand, but I didn't think of it until now.
It's all good.
But it is fiction.
Okay.
But it's based on how A Christmas Carol came to Charles Dickens.
Oh,
so he plays it's centered around Dickens.
Okay.
And it's all of his characters. And then it shows kind of like what is going on. And again, it's fairly fictitious.
Yeah.
However, it's based on someone who did exist.
Yeah.
And the story itself, the book was written in like a minute and a half. I mean, he wrote it so quickly because they wanted to get it out for the Christmas season.
Okay.
And I've seen people say, well, I've seen people go down the road of the religious aspect of it. Well, no one invented it. It was okay. I understand that.
You're like, forest for the trees.
Try to pull the scope back a little bit.
Yeah.
This was, I mean, Christmas Carol. Who doesn't know the Christmas Carol? Everybody knows the Christmas Carol.
Exactly.
And there is something so beautiful about the idea of being able to take the spirit of the season, whatever it is that you celebrate or recognize, and moving throughout the entire year with that.
Yeah.
And I think that I mean, it was so understated. It's just crazy to me that I saw it twice in the theater, and it feels like everybody should have seen it, but it wasn't in the theaters for very long. So how I managed to see it twice is beyond me. Okay. But it has a lot of the same principles of the book itself. But then when you find out about how it was that the book came to be, I mean, obviously it is a manifestation of somebody else's imagination of how it is that he, the characters come to him. There's actually people who come to him, like Scrooge comes to him, and he gathers up all of these people and he brings the story to life. And the idea that the book itself like sold out with as many, and this was before, I mean, the printing press was only so at that point. And so for the book to have sold as many copies as it did, and it kind of redefined the idea of the holiday season in popular culture. I'm using air quotes that you can't see.
Yeah. Right.
And it's just one of those where you watch it and you're like, oh my God, and it kind of sucks you into a little bit of imagination.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you just feel so good.
I love that. I love movies like that.
Such a beautiful feel good. Plus the guy who plays Dickens is hot. I'm not going to lie. Part of it kind of is a little bit of eye candy sort of thing for me. But it's really fun. It's really fun. And it's funny. It has so many funny little quippy moments to it, and very sweet and very tender and very, very cute. And it's not very long. I don't even know if it's an hour and a half long. It's a very short movie. So I'm throwing out, it sounds like I'm getting paid to endorse it. I'm not.
Like,
I'm just that much of a nerd.
Because they should.
What's that?
I said, are they paying?
Oh yeah, they should. Yeah.
No, we'll put that in the notes. We'll find the information on that and post that in the notes, because it's always nice to make sure if you have a resource I was like, where'd you go? All of a sudden
I'm
you were
not
gone.
sure what happened there, but
No,
it
I'm
was a
not
little
sure either. It's
creepy.
fine. It's fine. Everybody, the podcast is listening. They're like, what? All of a sudden, Sue's image off of her Zoom was gone. So what we're going to do to end today, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because you've already been listening with us for some time. But what I do want to do is wrap up with a little bit of healing energy for everyone. I feel like this can be a heavy thing, and I know it's a heavy thing to carry. And what the last thing that Sue and I ever want to do is leave you not feeling empowered and held and seen and nurtured. So this is a hard thing to infuse humor in. I understand that, and if you're facing this year, it certainly doesn't feel funny to you, which I completely respect.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would invite you to do if you're listening to us, and this is only if you want, if you are listening to us and you're like, peace out, I'm good, like I don't need no healing, then you can certainly exit stage left. Thank you, namaste, bless and release. We'll see you at the next time. And if you want to hang for just a couple more minutes, we will not be here long, but I just want to invite you to kind of sink and settle and find a root in your seat, which just means that you're going to anchor and you're going to find the space where you connect with your seat. And I just invite you to imagine taking a few nice, really intentional breaths. And so just inhaling and exhaling out. And taking a moment to just be present. And then I'm going to invite you to rub your hands together, right? So this is just me rubbing my hands together, creating some really nice warmth. And I want you to place those, both of them, hand over hand, right over your heart space. And so just as you're seated here, as you're breathing, hands over your heart, nurturing and holding that space. Right? Allowing that experience of the breath flowing, the anchor to the seat, to pull you into the present moment, to just be listening to the sound of my voice. And I invite you for a moment to just remember a really beautiful moment of deep joy in your life. Anything will do. Taking a moment, diving into a pure moment of absolute joy. Your grief will be here when you come back. So moving away to a state of joy, recalling a moment, a memory. Who's there? What's happening around you? Would you smell something or taste something? Remember what it felt like emotionally. And taking that mind inward and looking at the body, has anything let go? Did anything release? Is the breath coming just a little bit easier? Just allowing yourself, your mind, body, and spirit to really receive that state change. To understand that there is nothing wrong with grief. There is nothing wrong with feeling grief. That grief is a deep reflection of how much we love someone, something, experience, a moment. Grief is really very often a way to honor something, even if it's just a dream. Just breathing into that belly, feeling the belly and the lungs expand with the breath. Imagining that sweetness and warmth over the heart space like a beautiful blanket. Pulling in that moment of joy. And allowing yourself to tap in for just a few moments. And then taking 2 nice deep breaths. Big, big inhale into the belly, the ribs and the chest. And exhale it out, open mouth. One more. Big belly breath in. Audibly exhale it out. Allow the shoulders to slide down the back, shoulder blades. Mindfully leaving any tension behind the body. Slowly just coming back into your space. And just really honoring this moment. Honoring yourself. And just know that if grief is showing up for you in this season of your life, that Sue and I are wrapping you in so much love and light, that we know that all of us from time to time are going to go through really challenging moments, and that you are not alone in that. And we hold space for that, of every single kind of feeling and emotion experience that you bring forward. That it's respected and it's honored. So we send you so much love and healing light and energy. And we just surround you in warmth. And we will plan to see you for our next podcast. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.